Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Lathrop First Christian Church's Trivia Night! I am Pastor Scott. I am going to be your host this evening. We have several different categories tonight. I think you're going to have a lot of fun, so it is wonderful that you are joining with us today. Remember, this is the trivia game where we add up all the points and then we go, oh, it doesn't matter. And so then we don't care who wins. All right, if you're playing at home, make up your own rules. If you're playing online on YouTube Live, you know how this works. Some people get a little bit more of a head start than others, so we'll just get along and we'll be fine. So our categories for tonight is going to be Bible villains. Ooh, the bad guys. We're going to talk about Bible basics, and we're going to do numbers. And we're going to do the life and teachings of Jesus. We are going to go back to 15-second intervals. The last time we did 20 seconds, but we are going to go back to 15-second intervals between each question for my portion. But I'm going to turn you over to a different trivia for villain trivia. And so here you go. Enjoy this trivia.
Welcome to Bible Trivia. This time, we'll be asking questions about Bible villains. The first question for 1 billion points. This person was the son of Jerubbaal. He killed 70 family members. Was it A, Abimelech, B, Jotham, C, Joash, or D, Saul? The answer is A. Abimelech killed 70 family members. That was a tough question. The next question for 300 points. This person was a huge Philistine soldier from Gath. He fought David the shepherd and was killed by him. Was it A. Sidkiah, B. Goliath, C. Saul, or D. Samson? The answer is B. Goliath was a huge Philistine soldier who fought David the shepherd. The next question for 3,722 points. This person was the son of Adam and Eve. He killed his own brother. Was it A. Awan, B. Seth, C. Cain, or D. Abel? The answer is C. Cain was the son of Adam and Eve who killed his brother. The next question for 80,000 points. This person tried to kill young Yeshua and all the boys under 2 years old in Bethlehem. Was it A. David, B. Herod, C. Josiah, or D. Hezekiah? The answer is B. Herod tried to kill young Yeshua and all the boys under 2 years old in Bethlehem. The next question for so many points. This Bible villain was married to Ahab. She was a wicked queen who was thrown out of a window. Was it A. Tabitha, B. Delilah, C. Vashti, or D. Jezebel? The answer is D. Jezebel was married to Ahab. She was a wicked queen who was thrown out a window. The next question for 100 points. This Bible villain refused to free the Hebrews and survived the 10 plagues. Was it A. Pharaoh, B. Samson, C. Solomon, or D. Hezekiah? The answer is A. Pharaoh refused to free the Hebrews and survived the 10 plagues. The next question for all of the points. This Bible villain threw 3 men into a fiery furnace because they would not worship him. Was it A. Solomon, B. Rufus, C. Saul, or D. King Nebuchadnezzar? The answer is D. King Nebuchadnezzar threw 3 men into a fiery furnace because they would not worship him. The next question for no points. This person was a disciple of Jesus who finally betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. Was it A. Judas, B. Peter, C. Bartholomew, or D. Thomas? The answer is A. Judas was a disciple of Jesus who finally betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. The next question for 700 points. This Bible villain led a rebellion against his father, King David. He died after his long hair got caught in a tree. Was it A. Ahab, B. Pilate, C. Nimrod, or D. Absalom? The answer is D. Absalom led a rebellion against his father, King David. He died after his long hair got caught in a tree. And the last question for a bunch of points. This Bible villain was a Philistine woman whom Samson was in love with. She tricked him into revealing the secret of his strength. Was it A. Delilah, B. Elizabeth, C. Salome, or D. Julia? The answer is A. Delilah was a Philistine woman who Samson was in love with. She tricked him into revealing the secret of his strength. Thanks for playing Bible Trivia. We hope you'll play again soon.
Well, welcome back. Boy, that first question was really hard. I remember watching that going, I really hope that they get a little bit easier from there. But anyways, welcome back. We are going to get into the next 3 categories. And this category we're looking at next is called Bible Basics. We do this fairly often on this trivia because it's important that we remember some of these Bible basics. And so here we go. Here is the first question. What are the 2 major divisions in the Bible? What are the 2 major divisions in the Bible? All right, the 2 major divisions in the Bible is the Old Testament and the New Testament. I tell the girls when they open up their Bibles, it's the Old Testament on the left and the New Testament on the right. All right, next question, here we go. What is the special name we use to talk about the first 5 books of the Old Testament? What is the special name we use to talk about the first 5 books of the Old Testament? All right, the answer is Pentateuch, or the law. When we hear the word Pentateuch, we need to think of Penta, 5. And then it's also called the law or the Torah. Well, law and Torah are the same word. Torah is Hebrew, law is English. And so we talk about the Pentateuch or the law. And if you don't hear law, maybe you hear Torah. All right, next question, here we go. What is the special name we use to talk about the first 4 books in the New Testament? What is the special name we use to talk about the first 4 books of the New Testament? Well, the first 4 books of the New Testament is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And so when we think of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, we also need to realize that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John are also the Gospels. And so it's the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, the Gospel of John. All right, here we go. Next question. Things are going to start picking up and get a little bit trickier now. So if you stumbled on those first 3, it's only going to get worse. All right, here we go. See, I'm going to be a villain here in this video. All right, Samuel, who is the namesake of 1st and 2nd Samuel in the Old Testament, he is known to have filled 3 specific roles in Scripture. So in his time in Israel, he filled 3 specific roles. What are they? So we need 3 words here. Samuel, the namesake of 1st and 2nd Samuel in the Old Testament, is known to have filled 3 specific roles in Scripture. Those roles are, he was a prophet, a priest, and a judge. A prophet, a priest, and a judge. We're going to keep on this same theme for 2 more questions. So David, King David, is also found in 1st and 2nd Samuel. And it is David who has 3 professions. 3 jobs, so to speak. What are the 3 professions Scripture talk about that David fulfilled? Or he had. What 3 jobs did David have? The answer is he was a shepherd, a warrior, and a king. All right, last question. Scripture also tells us that Jesus fills 3 roles. So, or we might say they're titles that he has. What are these 3 roles or these 3 titles that Jesus has? What 3 roles or titles does Jesus have, according to Scripture? Jesus is a prophet, a priest, and a king. And so there we go. We have Samuel as a prophet, a priest, and a judge. David is a shepherd, a warrior, and a king. And Jesus is a prophet, a priest, and a king. So there you go. All right, next question. How many books are in the Protestant Bible? Every time we do Bible Basics, I ask this question. So if you're a long-time listener, you're probably going to know this right away. How many books are in the Protestant Bible? All right, the Protestant Bible has 66 books in it. All right, we're down to 2 questions. 2 questions. Here we go. And this first one's going to be a little bit trickier for you, a little bit harder for you. Jesus and the disciples used a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. And so the scrolls they were not reading were not written in Hebrew, they were written in Greek. In fact, there is no evidence that Jesus and the disciples used a Bible written in the Hebrew language. And so what is the special name given to the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible? What is the special name given to the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible? It's called the Septuagint, and if you hear the prefix of that septi, Well, it's also called the LXX, which would be the Roman numerals for 70. And so it would be called the Septuagint or the LXX. Like I said, that one was going to be a little bit harder. If we was on that video with the villains, that question would have been worth 1 billion points. All right, last question, here we go. How many I am statements are there in connecting Jesus to God? So in the Gospel of John, he says, I am this, I am that. How many different I am statements does Jesus use? Technically, there are 7 I am statements that use the same formula. I am the bread of life. Or I am whatever. Okay? But Jesus uses what I consider the 8th, and so I count at 8 when he says, before Abraham was, I am. But that's not in the same formula. If you're looking for the same formula, he says that 7 times. If you're looking to include the one I do, he uses I am 8 times to connect himself to his divinity, to God. All right, next category, here we go. We are now to numbers, and so all your answers are going to be numbers. In the New Testament, how many of the books did the Apostle Paul write? In the New Testament, how many of the books did the Apostle Paul write? The Apostle Paul wrote 13 of the letters in the New Testament. If you count the book of Hebrews, of which we have no idea who wrote it, but some people say the Apostle Paul did. If you believe the Apostle Paul wrote the book of Hebrews, you could say 14. But traditionally, that we know of, he wrote 13, and I do not believe in Pauline authorship of the book of Hebrews. So I say 13. All right, next question, here we go. How many major prophets are in the Old Testament? How many major prophets are in the Old Testament? Didn't even start your timer. All right, there are 4 major prophets in the Old Testament. So the next question is a follow-up question. How many minor prophets are in the Old Testament? How many minor prophets are in the Old Testament? All right, the answer is 12. And so when we talk about major prophets or minor prophets, major prophets simply mean they wrote a lot. Minor prophets mean they wrote a little. And so it's not about the significance or the importance of the writer or the letter or the writings. It just dictates, is it a long writing or a short writing? And in fact, the Old Testament is chock full of prophets who are not considered major prophets or minor prophets because we do not have a written record of them. We don't have a book of prophecy from them. The 2 more famous examples of that would be Elijah and Elisha, but we also have Nathan and Gad. We have quite a few that we do not have an individual book, and so they are not considered major or minor. So major prophets wrote a lot, we have 4. Minor prophets wrote a little, we have 12. And then we have a bunch of other prophets that didn't write anything. All right, next question, here we go. How many disciples did Jesus have? How many disciples did Jesus have? Jesus had 12 disciples. Now, we use that to talk about the smaller group of 12. Of course, we can even go smaller into some subsets of even those 12. But we have to remember disciple means a learner or a student. And there were more disciples than just the 12, but we talk about the 12 as those core disciples. Next question. How many tribes were there in Israel? In Israel, how many tribes were there? There are 12 tribes in Israel. Okay? How many sons did Abraham in the Old Testament have? How many sons did Abraham in the Old Testament have? Abraham had 2 sons. Which leads into the next question. How many sons did Isaac in the Old Testament have? How many sons did Isaac in the Old Testament have? If it helps, Isaac is one of the 2 sons of Abraham. Isaac had 2 sons. 2 sons. Father had 2 sons. Isaac had 2 sons. Now the next question, how many sons did Jacob in the Old Testament have? How many sons did Jacob in the Old Testament have? So Isaac, who had 2 sons, one of those sons was Jacob. And then Jacob ends up having 12 sons. 12 sons. All right, next question. Here we go. The army of Israel marched around the city of Jericho in the book of Joshua. How many times in total did the army of Israel march around the city of Jericho? How many times did the army of Israel march around the city of Jericho in the book of Joshua? A total of 13 times. They were to march around the city once a day for 6 days. That's 6. And then on the 7th day, they was to march around the city 7 times. And 6 plus 7, last I checked, is 13. So good for us there. This trivia seems to go pretty fast tonight, and I'm kind of excited about that. We're to our last category. I hope you're having fun. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. All right, here we go. The last category for the day is going to be life and teachings of Jesus. So this could be something about his life. It could be something about his teachings. Here we go. What was the last miracle performed by Jesus before his death? Before Jesus died, what was the last miracle that he performed? Jesus healed Malchus's ear. Remember, Malchus was that guard that Peter chopped off his ear and Jesus picks it up and puts it back on him and heals him. So that is recorded for us in Scripture as the last miracle that Jesus performed. Next question. In what town did Jesus perform his first miracle? In what town did Jesus perform his first miracle? It was in the town of Cana, C-A-N-A, Cana, and this is the famous miracle where Jesus turned water into wine at that wedding in Cana. All right, this one I'm going to actually probably give you 20 seconds for because it's a hair bit longer for your typing fingers if you're typing or even if you're trying to talk it out. Jesus tells the parable of the sower. And so my question to you is, where did the seeds land? What are those 4 types of soil? Where did those seeds land? 4 answers. That's 15 seconds. We're going to do another couple seconds here. Okay, the first type of soil was it landed on the path or the road. The second type of soil, it landed on rocky soil. The third type, it landed on thorny soil. The last type is it landed on good soil. So your translations and your recollections may be a little bit different, but that's essentially the 4 we're looking at. We're looking at the path or the rock, or the path or the road, and that's where the birds often eat it. The rock, where it doesn't get good roots. The thorniness, that it chokes out, the weeds choke out the grass, the seeds, and then good soil where it is nourished and grows. All right, next question. Jesus uses this common household item. So start thinking about common household items. And he uses it to talk about the Christian life. But he goes on and he says that when this item no longer fulfills its purpose, then, exact quote coming up from the NIV, then it is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. What's the common household item that Jesus is using to talk about the Christian life with? Jesus talks about the Christian life using this common household item, but he says when this common household item no longer fulfills its purpose, the exact quote is, it is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. Jesus uses salt. And this is where he talks about Christians and followers of Christ as you are the salt of the earth. But then he cautions us with that same thing, saying if we ever lose our saltiness, so to speak, once it is no longer good for anything, it should be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. All right. Next question is about the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes that Jesus preaches about. He says, blessed is the pure in heart for what? The Beatitudes, blessed is the pure in heart for blank. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. All right, next question, here we go. Jesus was walking along and he walks underneath a tree, and he sees a tax collector up in the tree. What was that tax collector's name? Tax collector up in a tree, Jesus sees. Well, it was Zacchaeus, was a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree, for the Lord he wanted to see. All right, next question. Oftentimes we talk about Jesus' public ministry lasting 3 years. But at what event is generally considered to be his first act of his public ministry? At what point does Jesus' public ministry start if we say he had a public ministry for 3 years? We talk about Jesus at his baptism, starting that public ministry that would go clear through his death on the cross as being that 3-year span. All right, 2 questions left. We're doing really good. We're going to get done pretty fast. Let me make sure I'm not missing one. I think it's just, 2 more questions. Wow. All right, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus compares this natural phenomenon to Solomon in all of his splendor. So Solomon in all of his splendor is a direct quote from Scripture. What is the natural appearing thing in nature, the natural phenomena that Jesus is comparing with Solomon in all of his splendor? All right. See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor is not dressed like one of these. So, if you want to talk about the flowers or talk about the flowers in the field, that is what Jesus is comparing with Solomon in all of his splendor. The last question, we're going to leave on a somber, sad note. Not really. I think this has been a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. What was the last Jewish feast that Jesus observed with his disciples before his death? Jack, when I was gone, talked about the Jewish feasts, those 7 Jewish feasts. We observed Yom Kippur on September 15th. So it's only appropriate we end with a question about a Jewish feast. What was the last Jewish feast Jesus observed with his disciples before his death? He observed Passover, which is our template, so to speak, for the Lord's table that we celebrate every Sunday. So please feel free, tell each other goodbye, whatever you want to do in that chat or at home. I'll let it go until I get the camera turned off. You all have a wonderful night. I will see you next month, the last Tuesday of each month. Nope, stop. I will not be doing this the month of October. We'll take a 1-month break and we'll get back into it in November because I will be having an in-person Reformation history class at the church on Tuesdays in October. Thanks. You all have a wonderful evening.